Lately, I've been doing a lot of thinking about thinking, as it were, just kind of trying to get a grasp on what my stream of consciousness is and how it is functioning in relationship to the world that I perceive it through. And it's really interesting where that kind of inquiry takes you. I mean, it takes you all over the place. But I've especially been doing a lot of looking into fractals and contemplating that concept in this context. I'm sure all of you have seen depictions of fractals. It's most popularly displayed through what are referred to as Mandelbrot sets. And Mandelbrot was working with computers in the late 1970s at IBM. And he took old mathematical formulas relating to chaos theory, put them into the computers, and received visualizations of fractals. This is where you have the familiar Fibonacci sequence spiral-looking images. And if you see this demonstrated, they'll take you section by section through the fractal, where you look at the image at the start and you dive deep into something that looks like it's just a part of the image and will be different than what you're looking at. But as you get closer and closer to it, you realize that it's a reflection of the original image. And that is why this idea is so prevalent in chaos theory mathematics, because that theory is centered around the idea that seemingly disordered systems ultimately have a type of order to them if you look at them in a certain way. For example, you can look at clouds on any given day and think, oh, there's no pattern there, they're clouds. There's no rhyme or reason to any of that. Or you can look at a shoreline and think, oh, the shoreline is so different all the way up and down the coast. There's no pattern there. And the scientists and mathematics experts that have looked into that question say, not so fast. Actually, there is order here. There is a pattern here, a structure to what is seemingly random. And as it relates to chaos theory, I'm sure everybody listening to this has heard of the idea of the butterfly effect, which is the idea that these systems are so complex, the proverbial butterfly could flap its wings and cause a chain reaction that shifts the entire order of the system that was into something else. I don't know if this is entirely accurate, but I read along these lines that even the most advanced computers are not capable of predicting the weather beyond a certain amount of days due to this factor in action, where the weather is a complex system that is seemingly disordered and random. And even though we have been able to find patterns in it, find the structure in the systems that create the weather, you can't just input those ideas into a computer and have it predict the weather in any great length into the future, because even the tiniest of things can cause a chain reaction that results in the weather changing. And just being realistic, in the age of geoengineering, that's probably playing a role too. I always crack up when I look at what my phone predicts the weather will be. And it's hilarious because it changes constantly. They'll be forecasting something that will happen 5 days from now, and it will change an innumerable amount of times leading up to that day actually coming into being. And although Mandelbrot sort of popularized the idea of the fractal, you can find this sort of imagery all over the world, especially in the Eastern philosophies and religions that draw mandalas or construct mandalas out of sand. You'll see similar patterns in the symmetry of the image. Naturally, a lot of that sort of stems from the effect that psychedelics have on the brain, where that type of imagery tends to be produced under the influence of those substances, which have the effect of altering how the brain is processing information. Meaning, as usual, modern science is kind of catching up with more ancient understandings of what awareness is, what consciousness actually is. This is why they refer to the Mandelbrot set as God's thumbprint. Meaning, you look at a thumbprint and you know that it's a thumbprint, and yet at the same time, each and every thumbprint is unique. There is disorder in the order, in other words. The order is the overall structure of the thumb, which produces a print in every human hand that is easily identifiable as a thumbprint. You put your thumb in the ink and you put it on a piece of paper, and you know that image is a thumbprint. However, there is disorder in the order in the sense that every individual thumbprint has a unique pattern within it. And speaking of fractals and metaphors, you could view this reality in the same exact way. In other words, reality itself has an order to it in the way that it was constructed and the way that we are designed to interact with it, at the same time that we each have our own free will to express ourselves uniquely within the larger pattern or structure that contains us. And this is why we would be able to say, hey, I'm having a human experience, and everyone would understand what we meant by that, even though they are experiencing something unique in comparison to us, and no two experiences are identical. In this way, your stream of consciousness, your awareness, is the same thing as it's contained within the brain. You have this structure, this order to the way that the brain interacts with itself and as an antenna to reality, getting the signal that informs it what to produce via your stream of consciousness. There is an order to that, a structure to it. There are certain parameters and rules that cannot be overcome in our waking state of consciousness. But within that, you have a unique stream of consciousness that will exhibit disorder or different patterns depending on what you experience through it. And in this way, similarly, no two experiences are the same, meaning no two streams of consciousness are identical. Your stream of consciousness is your thumbprint. They are one and the same. And interestingly, you are sort of imprinting your stream of consciousness onto reality in the unique way that you are able to do it, in the butterfly effect way that you are able to do it. Your stream of consciousness is capable of influencing events around you that have unimaginable consequences. The permutations are unimaginable. That is the entropy in the system. That's the disorder that a lot of people perceive as just random chaos that has no explanation. And this very easily fits into the atheist worldview, right? But if you're viewing it from the perspective that I'm getting into here, you understand that there is an order to this experience, even though it might not seem that way, in the same way that there is an order to your thumbprints, or there is an order to weather systems, or the clouds, or anything that is seemingly disordered and has no reasoning behind it from our limited perspective. From the very limitations built into our stream of consciousness and what it is limited by design to perceive. And you can see the differences there in the various states of consciousness that are possible. And scientists have measured these changes. What's the brain activity like when someone is under anesthesia? What's the brain activity like when somebody is under psilocybin? What's the brain activity like when somebody is in REM sleep? Measuring that activity, looking at what regions of the brain are communicating with each other, you can see how our waking state of consciousness, our stream of awareness, is functioning in a very ordered way in what they refer to as below criticality. It's subcriticality, or order within entropy. This is most likely what is being referred to when various traditions are telling you to go within in order to find the truth. The point is, you can look at millions of other thumbprints on pieces of paper, and you would be able to understand that it's a thumbprint, but you would never be able to understand why it's a thumbprint if you were only looking at everyone else's. And it's the same with your stream of consciousness. If you want to become more aware, you have to focus on your experience. Anyways, as I was thinking about thinking and going through all of this, I realized something about my awareness and fractals and the relationship between the two. Specifically as it relates to how you can find the full lifetime encapsulated within a single day. One day is a fractal of a lifetime, which is where the intuitive truth that there is only the moment in all of existence comes from. In this reality, whatever it is, wherever we are, there is a sunrise and a sunset. And that which is in control here has put artificial measurement units on top of that daily cycle of sunrise and sunset, where we have seconds, minutes, hours, which then leads into weeks, days, months, years. And sure, it's a little different now because of technology and electricity, where we have the ability to stay up much later than the sunset and maybe get up a little later than the sunrise. But this is a metaphor, so try not to get too stuck on details like that. I only bring it up because, like you probably did, I thought of this stuff too when I was thinking about it, because that's just what your rational mind does. It pokes holes in everything. It tries to keep you grounded out of realms like this, which is a good thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing, because it is necessary to stay grounded when you think about this stuff and encounter the truth about what's really going on here. Anyways, you have the sunrise and the sunset, and eventually the body that we are aware within, the body that is the vehicle through which we perceive our experience here, needs to rest. And it does this when it is dark. So the sun sets and we feel the urge to go to sleep. And sleeping is a different state of consciousness. We know this because we dream when we are in the state of consciousness known as sleeping. And we know that the dream world is different than the waking world. Now, many people would argue that there is no difference between the two, that we are in some kind of dream in the waking world that we perceive, and that very well could be the truth on some level. But within the experience, limited by what we can perceive when we are awake, quote unquote, we intuitively know the difference between a dream while we are sleeping and quote unquote reality that we experience. And then the next morning, when the sun rises, at some point you are born into the world again. It's a new day. This is where all the cliches about seizing the day come from. It comes from this true wisdom regarding what a new day actually is in the context of a lifetime. When you are born into this world, you have no memory of anything before it. Before it happened, speaking for myself, I don't have any memory of where I came from, if anywhere, before I entered into this experience. For all I know, I was in some kind of suspended animation in the same way that your consciousness perceives being asleep. In any event, you are born into the world, and at the very end of it, you go back to sleep, essentially, which we refer to as death. Meaning birth and death is mirroring day and night, sleep and awake. To the point where every morning that you come out of that state of dreaming, that state of unconsciousness, compared to waking reality, you are born again. And at the end of every day, you are dying, for lack of a better term. You're going back to that state of unconsciousness in comparison to what you were experiencing when you were awake. Born into the world with the sunrise and dying out of the world with the sunset. And I'm just spitballing here, but I could imagine the afterlife, quote unquote, being similar to the dream state. And we even kind of attach the ideas of heaven and hell with dreamlike qualities. Heaven embodies the best possible dream that anybody could ever imagine in the way that it is described to us. Whereas hell embodies the very worst possible nightmare that you could ever imagine having while you are dreaming. Forgetting about the ability of that which is in control here to interface and influence your dreams and put something in there that is not what would naturally be occurring, our dream state is largely dependent on our experience. This is what the subconscious mind does. It accumulates all of these things that it deems as important via your experience, and then it pulls them from your hard drive when you're in that dream state, and it shows you certain things. Sometimes it's very innocuous. Maybe you ate a certain food that day and it shows up in your dream for whatever reason. But then maybe something shows up from 25 years ago that you had totally forgotten about it. Then boom, it's there in your dream, trying to show you something. And your state of being is influencing your dream state, how you're generally feeling, what your outlook on the world is, what you are putting into your mind. How many people watch these awful horror movies produced by Hollywood, go to sleep that night, and then have a nightmare that's sort of related to the movie? Well, extrapolate this out in a fractal sense. See how that pattern right there is the same thing that's being done on a larger scale as it relates to what is being put into our minds regarding what this reality is, what is our place within it, and how we are trained to view it. From there, it's easy to extrapolate into other ideas that are being given to us through the mainstream religions. Technically, you are alive when you're dreaming, of course. Again, this is a metaphor. See the pattern. This is why that which is in control here would take the term order out of chaos and use it as one of its marketing slogans. Reality itself is order out of chaos. And as it always does, it takes that true principle and inverts it. To control your mind, to view it in a way that means some type of control that you are not capable of overcoming. Some type of control that is going to influence what you experience when your dream here ends. Life itself is order out of chaos. Free will within structure. You look at everything going on around the world and you think there is no rhyme or reason behind any of this. There is no plan. There is nothing behind all of this. Look at what is being allowed to happen. And it's like, no, more likely, free will is the butterfly effect. Free will allows permutations that turn something ordered into something disordered. And because the order is coming from a scale higher that we are not capable of perceiving in this state, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, oh man, there's no plan here. There's no help coming. We're on our own. But you have to see how while there is free will, there can also be destiny and corrections within the order itself. The lattice that makes up the order of the creation can be altered in response, and it can course correct free will at a certain point. And because of the time dilation through the scales of creation, that can take thousands of years from one scale's perspective in comparison to higher scales. And that is the true beauty of being alive, no matter where you find yourself. It's not this idea that you're somehow letting this place walk all over you, submitting to it, allowing it to abuse you, just from the idea of being grateful for your experience, being in awe of the privilege of waking up with a sunrise and having no limitations on what you could do that day. If you really wanted to, there are no limitations on what you can do on any day. You are born again every morning. What are you going to do with that day before you die that night? This is where that mentality comes from. And it's been turned into cliches like everything else has, of course. Everything true is turned into a cringe cliche at some point. And the people that aren't doing this kind of introspection just go along with the hive's trends, and they don't think any deeper about it, and they essentially ruin the truth that is within the cliche. That is the origin of the cliche. You are born again every morning with the free will to imagine anything to do that day. But then the rational mind comes in, of course, and says, yes, but I need to make money and I have all these other responsibilities. I can't just do whatever I want. Well, that's fine. We all have to do things to survive. But truly, we could do whatever we wanted if we understood the reality that we were in. If your intent is just to express being alive with the most amount of awe and joy possible for the gift of the experience, if that is your intention, and you are being guided via that intention, you will never infringe on anyone else's experience. Whatever they're doing won't even bother you in any way, even to the extreme of potentially being held in a prison of some kind, not even bothering you, because you're still being given the gift of being alive and proving to that which is holding you captive what the value of life truly is, what the gift of a day truly is. You are being given the privilege of exemplifying that. And you would never take from someone else, because you have already been given everything that you need. There's nothing more than that gift. The free will to embody how you were designed to be, even if you want to take it to the extreme that your body itself is some kind of prison, some kind of cage, right? Even then, it's a gift and a privilege to wake up every morning and be born again with limitless potential to embody the frequency of the higher scale of creation that envisioned you into existence via its imagination. How do you think the cells in your body react to that kind of frequency coming from your stream of consciousness? Do you think it's possible for disease to manifest when that kind of thing is going on? That's why the man they call Jesus left the impact that he did, because that being was infused with what I'm referring to here, and it was trying to help everyone else see the truth of the situation that they were in. And a lot of people think that God has abandoned them and this world. But the question you have to ask yourself is, what does a teacher do when a student is taking a test? The teacher remains silent and lets the student take the test. Again, I am not trying to excuse what is going on in this world, but you have to see how you are being tested by this world at the same time. I am just not intelligent enough or aware enough to explain to you why things happen the way they do to the people that it happens to. There doesn't seem to be any order to it, right? It seems like random, unfair chaos. But if we take our lessons from what we observe all around us, we know that all of these things that we think are just random and chaotic actually have this structured, ordered pattern to them that necessitates some kind of mind giving it order. What we are experiencing right now, if you go with the biblical story, is the butterfly effect of Adam and Eve failing their test in the garden. That's probably a metaphor for something else that transpired, but we are still experiencing the butterfly effect of that. The free will decision, the original free will decision, led to permutations that could not possibly be fathomed at the time by those two beings, to the point where planet Earth is seemingly hopeless right now, depending on where you live and what you are experiencing. Again, I live in the United States of America. I have no idea what I did to deserve the privilege of that, because compared to the rest of the world, I don't have to worry about being bombed right now. I don't have to worry about soldiers coming in here and shooting me, right? And there are a lot of places all over the world that have to worry about that kind of thing. There are a lot of places whose economies are far worse than what's going on here, even though we are now feeling the pressure too in the context of the larger system that is coming into being right now, if we continue to allow it to come into being. Still, it's nowhere close to what other people are experiencing. And I have no idea why it's playing out the way it's playing out. What did I do to deserve being born here and not experience those types of things? As far as I know, nothing. And that seems very random and unfair. But there is most likely some kind of order behind the seemingly random. I mean, we know that there is order behind the scripting of everything that we see in the news and larger media apparatus. But that is what is being done in opposition to the original script that was done as far as the order of this reality itself. And how we are designed to be free will expressions within that underlying structure. Meaning we are ultimately responsible for where we end up, both in our individual lives and, more broadly speaking, as a species. And in that context, each day is a fractal of your entire life. Each day is a lifetime. And you could even extend the metaphor to a week. You could take 7 of those days, 7 of those births and deaths. You put them together and you had ups and downs. You had high moments and low moments. And at the end of the 7 days, you have what is essentially a lifetime of experiences encapsulated via 1 week. Because that is the pattern that your life will have, the ups and the downs, the high moments and the low moments, the celebrations and the grieving. And it's interesting, I was thinking how, from a worldly perspective, I would say that I have no ambition. I have no dream for my life along these lines. Because I know I'm not God. I know I can't just create my own reality. In spite of everything that I'm going into here, understand that I'm not referring to that type of thing. I'm describing this perspective within the perspective that I know my role. I know my place in this world. It is not for me to decide what my life is supposed to be in the grand scheme of things. Day to day, it is fully within my control to determine how I will experience the experience. It is entirely within my control how I will experience my life. What will my attitude be? How will I interact with other people? It's not about me creating some dream for myself in this place. Some perceived pinnacle of existence that I could will into existence, stomping over anyone and everyone that I had to in order to get there, cutting off everyone and everything that I've ever known to get there because that's holding me back, right? Ignoring all of the people that are not where I'm at because they don't understand and they're holding me back. On and on it goes. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about something much different where you understand the privilege of being alive. Where you play your part just by being you. That's it. You just have to be you, who you really are. You don't have to pretend to be something that you're not. And trying to portray yourself as some kind of guru who has figured out the secrets of the universe is pretending to be something that you're not, because no human being is capable of doing that. I don't care what they say. They are not capable of embodying that which created us and being that in this place, creating on its level. No one is capable of that. But it makes perfect sense that the intelligence in control of this world currently would try to convince you that that's who you were, and you were entitled to create some dream for yourself, no matter the consequences. And indeed, that's what it sells to everyone who sells their soul to it. They're seeking that worldly dream here, and they are given it at the expense of their soul. And you are not on that level. You're not famous, one of these people that makes that kind of deal, but you make your own deals along those lines to get what you think you want when you are under the spell that is society and what it programs you to want and believe, to think you need. There is no dream to have when you've already been given everything by just being alive and given the gift and privilege of embodying that which created you in this creation that it made for you. Forget about everything else that's been done to it that's changed the original schematics, the butterfly effect that turned this place into something unimaginable in terms of the mind that originally created it, starting with the food chain where life consumes life, which then perpetuates the cycle of people being violent with each other, whether it's physical or verbal, and in a constant mode of taking from other people because they have anxiety that they will be taken from. I have to get what is mine. Survival of the fittest. I mean, that's the ultimate expression of life here, given to us through their contrived idea of evolution. It's forgive them for they know not what they do, so that you can embody the original design. Meaning, if you seek some kind of vengeance for what is being done, that will pollute you in a way that you can no longer express that frequency. God's thumbprint is your stream of consciousness, and your free will is the ability to determine how that stream is perceived by you and everyone you come into contact with. You are the order in the chaos. That's the truth of it. Your free will is your unique thumbprint expressed via your stream of consciousness. And it's so interesting how it's become popular to refer to the term spiraling as it relates to your mind and thoughts. What does a fractal portray? What do the Mandelbrot sets show? They always show spirals. And we use the phrase spiraling out of control to refer to situations that are becoming very disordered in comparison to how they were before the spiraling began. Your stream of consciousness, your thought stream, your awareness is the spiral. It's the fractal itself. Your stream of consciousness then is the butterfly effect in chaos math. And at the same time, every word that comes out of your mouth and every thought that you have produces the permutations in your own frequency that can impact the world around you in ways that your mind simply is not even able to comprehend. And indeed, sometimes with things that you are destined to do via the program or order that was coded into you, those things will play out almost like involuntary contractions of muscles in your body, like your heart beating or your lungs opening and closing. Your stream of consciousness has the involuntary muscle known as destiny programmed into it. But your free will allows you to oscillate around in a way that it resonates as a frequency that can be perceived. Your thoughts produce the frequency of your being, and then that is extended through the frequency coming out of your vocal cords, which then affect everyone around you the most in terms of how they perceive you and themselves then, how they feel when they are around you. Your stream of consciousness is a fractal spiral. People use the term spiraling in relationship to their thoughts now to describe the onset of anxiety attacks, or sometimes when people are drunk, their perception is altered in some way chemically. It's referred to as spiraling out of control, because you no longer have control of your stream of consciousness, you see. It's spiraling out of control. It's becoming like the fractal images where it looks like there is total disorder and chaos there. But really, there's an underlying structure and pattern to it that is your linear thought stream, and everything that you will think to do going forward. It's just in those moments you lose control of your thought stream. It spirals out of control due to whatever you have done to yourself, and other people perceive that as you going nuts or losing your mind or becoming dangerous in some way. Unpredictable. And scientists know this via their study of the brain, that our waking state, our normal baseline, is below this level of criticality or entropy where the ego itself is designed to prevent your mind from becoming disordered. No wonder that so many of these quote-unquote spiritual ideas out there are telling you to dismantle your ego. If you dismantle the ego, you're dismantling your connection to stable waking existence. Why would you ever want to do that? Some people voluntarily choose to do that through substances, chemicals. We've all made those choices at some point in our life to alter our consciousness. And why do we all do that? Most of the time, it's to distract us from the stream of consciousness that is producing thoughts that we don't want to face. So we spiral out of control. And eventually, if you get back to the baseline, it's like your spiral comes under control, which could just refer to that oscillation, the revolutions of your awareness going around the confines of the thought stream. It's like those videos that got put out a while ago, envisioning the idea that the sun is actually moving through space and the planets are rotating around it as if on a line connected to the sun. In that sense, you could view it like DNA in the way that it oscillates around a perceived line. That's your stream of consciousness. And when it is functioning in a stable way, that pattern is very orderly. But when it spirals out of control, the oscillations become larger, and other people then perceive you as out of control because this oscillation is indistinguishable from your vibration, from your frequency. And people can just intuitively sense that, hey, something seems off with you. Is everything okay? That can happen just as much as it can obviously happen when somebody has drank way too much alcohol and they're clearly out of control, spiraling. Or somebody's having a panic attack. They're out of control. Something's wrong. You can immediately see it. So when they say order out of chaos as their motto, most likely they're referring to something along those lines. In training every stream of consciousness to oscillate around its frequency and its desire, its worldview. It orders our collective stream of consciousness in the same way that a queen bee orders the beehive around its stream of consciousness, controlling the bees' minds to do the work of the hive. In this reality, your stream of consciousness is moving forward, linearly speaking, and your thoughts are spiraling around your stream of consciousness. And you, with your free will, determine how those thoughts impact your attitude and how you approach the world. And hopefully you can see more clearly what I meant by saying that it doesn't matter where you are or what is going on here truly. None of that can impact your free will ability to control the thoughts' impact on your life. You control the oscillation. You control the frequency. And every day is a rebirth and a death. Every day is a mini lifetime. And none of us are promised the next day, which is the most important part of all. None of us are promised tomorrow. In that way, you are very literally living out a lifetime each day because you do not know if there is another one coming. That is the fractal of it, the metaphor, the scalar relationship between a day, a sunrise and a sunset, and a life. And it's funny, for whatever reason, the phrase, nice guys finish last, popped into my head right now. But I think it is relevant, metaphorically speaking, because there's a lot of truth to the fact that in the world as it exists, yes, being a nice guy or a nice girl, you will finish last most of the time as it relates to succeeding in this world. And then what do? Well, they try to tell you, hey, here's how you get over being that. Change who you are so you can succeed with the opposite sex in this insane state that it's in, right? Here's what you need to do. Change everything about you and change this, don't do that. And it's like, hold on a second. No one ever poses the question, what game am I playing that I'm finishing last in? In other words, do I actually care that I'm finishing last in this game over here? And when you sit there and you look at it, you're like, no, actually, I don't care. Because I'm not going to change who I am to try to finish first in some insane game where everyone is delusional and living life the wrong way. Why would I ever want to do that? No, I will continue finishing last in your game over there. Thank you very much. I'm good. And it's the same thing here, right? Where a lot of this stuff can give you the idea that you're missing something. Oh, if I would just do these things, I could get these resources and then my life would be so much easier. And maybe that's what you need to do. Maybe you will go down that path at some point. But ultimately, you're just finishing last in a game that's insane. The same as the nice guy finishes last or nice girl finishes last. The people that are playing the game in the survival of the fittest way will walk all over you if you give them the opportunity. They will take advantage of you. And you will finish last in their game. But no one ever asks the question, is this a game that I even want to play? Is this a game that I even care in any way about finishing highly in? No, I'm pretty sure I don't care about this game at all. And I want no part of it. And I don't care what place you put me in. You're not going to shame me because I'm not fitting into your game in the way that you want me to fit into it. And ultimately, that is what the idea of turn the other cheek is, or forgive them for they know not what they do is. You're finishing last in their game. You're finishing last in the game constructed by that which is in control here. You're finishing last in the game that perverts free will and turns it into something else that deviates everyone from their intended design. If I finish last in the game by staying true to who I know I am, then so be it. You will not shame me into some perception that I am weak because I stay true to who I am. I will not allow you to do that. That is my free will being expressed via the thought stream in my stream of consciousness. I am here to do what God intended me to do, nothing more, nothing less. And if your game is not a part of that intention, I have no interest in it, and you can label me as the very, very, very last place finisher if you want. That makes you feel better, go right ahead. The truth is that it takes the greatest amount of strength, the greatest amount of fortitude to stay true to what I am talking about here in the face of all the pressure that will come down on you if you don't give in to it. It will try to break you down in so many different ways. It takes the greatest amount of strength to turn the other cheek in that respect. Hey, I'll turn that cheek right towards you. The other one, go ahead and smack that one too, because you're just showing me how sick you are. And I'm here trying to help you, and you'll do that anyway. I'm trying to show you what you're supposed to be. I'm trying to show you that you're not supposed to be playing this game, and yet you would smack me twice if I gave you the opportunity. You would shame me and call me weak to try to convince all of the other minds and alter their perception of what's truly going on. In the same way that a bunch of bullies in a high school somewhere will try to peer pressure the one who doesn't want to go along with whatever it is they're doing. It takes the greatest amount of integrity and strength and desire to maintain your center in those moments. To stand there and say, I forgive you for you know not what you do. And there is no kind of holier than thou energy coming from me when I say that. It's just the fact. I am only interested in the truth. The objective truth of the situation right now is that I must forgive you because you have no idea what you're doing. It's nothing more or less than that. It has nothing to do with me. I am a moron. I am a dumb human that doesn't know anything. Regardless, those are the facts of the situation. And it takes the most possible amount of strength to resist temptation in this way. So never let anyone try to shame you like there's something wrong with you because you're the nice guy or the nice girl that finishes last in life here, right? In the same way that you can extrapolate that metaphor to society itself and quote-unquote success. And as things get crazier and crazier in clown world, it's going to be more and more imperative that you maintain your stream of consciousness. Don't let it spiral out of control.